So we're here with Wrestling Travel for the Love of Wrestling in Liverpool. I'm here with the one and only Eric Bischoff. Eric, how are you enjoying the event so far?
Love the event. Love the city of Liverpool. It's the first time I've ever been here, so I was excited to come here and visit all the typical tourist sites, but take in the architecture and everything else that Liverpool has to offer. So found a great Thai restaurant and a great curry restaurant.
Perfect. That's all you need, isn't it?
That's all I need, really.
So obviously you're here doing a lot of sort of NWO reunion stuff with Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, the Outsiders. Can you just sum up what it was like at that point in time in WCW when they came over from WWE and did the whole sort of invasion, leading to you eventually joining the NWO with them? What was it like that during that period of time in WCW?
Well, it was obviously a very exciting time. A lot of things happened during that period of time. A lot of things changed for professional wrestling during that time. It was the beginning of an era where we, at Nitro and because of the NWO, introduced a much more reality-based way of telling stories. Our characters were much more reality-based than they had been previously in WWF or in WCW. So that was a very significant time, but a lot of things happened so quickly. I look back at it now and I describe it as being on a treadmill going about 12 or 14 miles an hour, and you're running so fast you don't dare look down at your feet because you'll crash. But it was a very exciting time.
So you beat WWE in the ratings famously for 83 straight weeks. Towards the end of that run, did you ever feel like, oh, they're gaining momentum on us, what do we need to do, what's happening? Was there any sort of panic backstage, or what was the feeling then when they started to sort of close the gap in the ratings?
Well, there were a lot of things going on. First of all, WWF, at that time, really started to copy our formula. They went from being a very animated and cartoonish type of presentation where all of the characters were either garbage men or, angry dentists or IRS agents or midget clowns, and they began to copy our formula, our format, which was more reality-based, real characters. Stone Cold Steve Austin being the first. Vince McMahon followed in my footsteps and became more of an on-screen character, became Mr. McMahon, acknowledged that he really was running the company for the very first time. That was about a year after I did it. But what I noticed, and especially when they brought in Mike Tyson, I noticed that they were not only following our format, but they were doing it better than we did. And that's when I really started feeling the pressure. And it wasn't a panic, but it was an acknowledgement.
You once infamously challenged Vince to a match at a WCW pay-per-view. Now obviously he didn't show up, but was there a plan in place for if he did? Did you ever think, okay, there's a 1% chance he might turn up, what do I do if he actually shows?
Well, I would, people like Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, and others that knew Vince pretty well were convinced he was going to show up. And my plan was just to kick his ass.
Fair enough, but I'm guessing that would have been a shoot then, rather than sort of like...
Oh, no, yeah.
Because I can't imagine it would have been friendly.
No, there would have been nothing friendly about it. And look, I say that with a lot of bravado that I would have kicked his ass, but that would have been my plan. Now, my plan may not have worked out, and I may have been on the receiving end of that ass kicking, but that was okay too. I didn't really care one way or the other because I knew it would be a great television moment.
What did you make of, you came into WWE in 2002, about a year after the invasion. Was there ever any sort of opportunity for you to join in 2001? Because it felt like they needed a lot of the real top tier stars at that point, and that's what people have said, that why the invasion didn't work as well, because there was no NWO there until a year after. Did they ever reach out to you before 2002 to go and work for them, or what happened with that? They
actually did. About a year before I came to work for them, I got a call in, I think it was July of 2001, and Jim Ross called me. He was the head of talent relations at WWE at the time, and he asked me if I'd be interested in coming in. And it happened to be over the 4th of July holiday, which is in the United States a big deal, and my wife's birthday. And I had a lot of people flying into, we have a home out in the western part of the United States in the Rocky Mountains, an area called Cody, Wyoming. And a lot of my friends and family were coming out for a family reunion. So when they called me and said, would you be interested in coming in? I was like, I got people coming in from all over the country. It's, holiday, my wife's birthday. And I said, well, possibly, but, give me an idea. What would I be doing? What do you have in mind? And they couldn't really give me an answer. And I got the sense from Jim Ross, honestly, that he really wasn't that excited about me coming in. And I understood why. Because at the time we had history. We're friends now, but back then he really wasn't too excited about convincing me to come in, and I wasn't too excited about leaving, my family and my friends over a holiday if they couldn't at least tell me what I would be doing. So I passed, and I thought, well, that'll be the end of it. Not too many people pass on an opportunity to go to work for the WWE, and I put myself on that list. Never thought I'd hear from him again until I did in 2002.
And what was the reaction like backstage when you did join the company in 2002?
I think there was genuine surprise. I think hardly anybody, including myself, would have ever guessed, that I'd actually come to work for them. Not that I wouldn't have wanted to, but I just don't think anybody would have ever expected that we would be able to work things out, and I would. But I was anxious to go to work for them. I really I thought it was a great opportunity, and I'm to this day, I'm very grateful for that opportunity because I had a lot of fun. I got to work with a lot of people that I'd never worked with before. Including Vince McMahon and Stone Cold Steve Austin and John Cena and many, many others. And it was a really fun period of time for me.
So during the famous Bash at the Beach in 1996 when Hulk Hogan turned heel and joined the NWO, there's a lot of stories have gone around that he wasn't overly sold on the idea originally because he'd been this babyface for such a long time. And was there any sort of contingency plan in place? Because apparently people have said on the day of the show there was a 50-50 chance he wasn't going to do it. Was there any sort of contingency plan in place for somebody else to take his spot as that third man?
Sting.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Look, with something that big, you always like to have a plan B. And I wasn't convinced that Hulk was convinced that he really wanted to do it. It was a big move. And there were a lot of people in Hulk's ear at the time. He had his own concerns about it to a degree. I had tried to convince him a year earlier to turn heel, and he politely, showed me out the door of his home. Hey, brother, gotta pick the kids up from school, brother, so see you later,
That's a spot-on Hogan impression, isn't it?
Well, I don't know how close it was. There was a little bit of Randy Savage mixed in there, but... Yeah, so I wasn't 100% convinced. He was 100% convinced, and because of that, I did have a plan B, and it was going to be Sting.
And was Sting sold on the idea of...
Yes, he was. And it was hard for him, too, because Sting had always been a babyface as well. And it would have been a risk for him, but he was willing to take it if it was necessary.
So finally, if you had to put together an NWO today using current stars... who would you choose to go into that faction?
Oh, gosh, that's a hard one. Casting, one of the reasons that the NWO worked as well as it did, people are still walking around today. Here we are in Liverpool, England, in 2019, all right? And I still see more NWO shirts around today than almost any other brand. And it's lasted so long for a lot of reasons, but partially because it was cast so well. Just the combination of Hulk Hogan, especially Hulk Hogan turning heel, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, X-Pac, Conan, these are all characters that really gave the NWO a personality. So casting is really important. And if I had to pick three people today, I'd probably start out with Dolph Ziggler. I think Dolph Ziggler is probably one of the more underrated talents out there. He's capable of, he's a legitimate, amateur wrestling, champion, I believe, in his division, or was. But he's got great comedic skills. He could be a serious, deadly, threatening competitor, or he can be a very comedic personality, and I think you need that. As far as, my Kevin Nash type character, I might go with a Roman Reigns, if he could embrace that heel character. And then you need that third guy, almost, Scott Hall, as amazingly gifted as he is, he played kind of a coward. He hid oftentimes behind Kevin Nash. He let Kevin Nash do all the heavy lifting. Then he'd come in and take the credit for it. that role would be a little harder to fill. I'd have to think about that one a little bit more.
Fair enough. Actually, one last question. If you had to sum up the chaos backstage at WCW in the last sort of couple of years, would there be one story in particular that sort of sums up when the company was struggling, just how bad things have got?
Nothing really comes to mind. Most of the frustration and the chaos occurred in the executive part of the business, more so than it did backstage. There's always issues backstage. Look at the WWE today. I mean, even at WrestleMania, you find out that they were changing up the order of the card 20 minutes before the show started for a show as significant as WrestleMania. So, look, live television, things happen. People get injured, flights are delayed. You end up with creative issues and challenges. People get ill. Sometimes you just come up with a better idea. There's always things that happen at the last minute. So I think the amount of chaos that people talk about in WCW is sometimes overrated or over-narrated. Let's put it that.
Thank you, Eric Bischoff. Thank you very much.
Thank
Pleasure
you.
to have you. Cheers.
All right.
Thank you very much.